Did you realize that if the laws back then are the same that they are today, some of the senior adults who were recognized this morning may not even be here because of abortion? It's a lie of Satan, and the scripture says the Father has come to kill and steal. Satan, the evil one, has come to kill, steal, and destroy. The Father, Jesus, has come to give us life, and life more abundantly and eternally. And this young lady who's coming now blessed our hearts at the Choice to Make banquet, where Kathy had arranged for her to come. And I, that night, went to ask her if she could come be with us at First Baptist. She was living in the Mooresville, North Carolina, near Charlotte area, but now they've moved to Myrtle Beach. She'll tell you more about her family and their family situation. It is a fascinating story, but I also want you to know that she was a former Carolina Panthers cheerleader. So she not only cheers for victory in life on a football team, or did then and there, she cheers for victory for life now for the glory of Jesus Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life. Would you join me in welcoming January Fitzgerald?
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. I wanted to start off this morning just by thanking you for having me here this morning as a part of your congregation and welcoming my sweet mom here. That was hard, bringing her right in front of me. As I tell my story, bear with me because the Lord is just now asking me to start to share, and some of it is difficult to share. But I'm continuing doing what he is asking me to do, and that is to share even if it's hard. So this will be the first time sharing my testimony with my mother present too, so that makes things a little more difficult. My name is January Fitzgerald. I'm 38 years old, and I'm from a small town right outside of Charlotte, Mooresville, North Carolina. I am happily married to a loving, kind, true American hero. My husband, Sean, has served the last 18 years in the United States Army and is currently still serving in the reserves. We are also parents to 10-year-old identical twin sons, Gabriel and Owen Fitzgerald, whom I'm also proud to say are straight A students. In addition to being a full-time wife and mother, I am a caregiver to my mother, who suffers with vascular dementia. My family currently resides in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. My story can get a little complicated to follow. So, the lady sitting down front here is technically my grandmother. I was raised by my grandmother. Her name is Dot, but I call her Mom. So when referring to my story, if you hear me say Mom, I'm speaking of her. If I'm speaking of my birth mother, I will say my birth mother, Linda. My mom birthed and raised her own 3 children. My birth mother, Linda, a son, Carl, who has passed, and a daughter, Angie. At first glance, it may appear that my story begins on my birthday, January 15th, 1980. Yes, that's how I got my name. But my story begins before that. You see, my birth mother, Linda, had had many abortions before becoming pregnant with me. When she found out she was pregnant with me, the Lord had already protected me in her womb. He made it impossible, creating every obstacle in her way to have me aborted. She would have to carry me full term and give me life. Now, not an easy life when you're trying to grow and survive. Unfortunately, due to her unhealthy lifestyle choices, I was born addicted to drugs. I spent the first 3 months of my life going through detox in the neonatal intensive care unit, but I was alive. You may be thinking, how could I have such peace about a desolate situation? But it's simple for me, because I'm truly thankful for life. I was released from the neonatal intensive care unit at about 3 months old. Shortly after my release and a late night drug run, my birth mother, Linda, abandoned me. I was left outside at a local bar. She has not looked at me yet until then. Just caught my mom's eyes, sorry. Someone contacted my grandmother, who I call Mom, to inform her that I was left outside alone. My grandmother, who I call Mom, came to my rescue that night. For the most part, Linda, my birth mother, was sparsely in my life. My mom gave Linda multiple opportunities to stand up to be a parent to me. However, with every opportunity given, my life would be put into jeopardy. Eventually, my mom, Dot, had enough, and she took on the full-time role of mom at age 47 years old to a 3-month-old baby. She was my mom. She raised me as her 4th child, and honestly, I didn't know any difference. I just thought my mom was a little bit older than everyone else's mom. She was my safe place, and I knew love because of her. She enrolled me into dance classes when I was just 8 years old. I quickly discovered my passion for dance thanks to her love and encouragement. I went on to work with the Carolina Panthers for 4 seasons as a Carolina Panthers top cat. My mom even made the 10-hour drive to Houston, Texas to watch me perform in Super Bowl 38. Go Panthers? Maybe? Okay. Linda, my birth mother, would check in and keep tabs on me. She eventually married and had my half-brother, Carl. Sadly, her disease of addiction and bad choices eventually caught up to her and led to her death in 2000. I was 20 years old and trying to grow into my own and learn the ways of the world. Linda called to say that she was sick and that she wanted to see me. She had been given 48 hours to live. I was content with my life and didn't really want to be concerned with the woman who had given me life. And let's be honest, for the woman who had abandoned me. My feelings were still a jumbled mess as far as she was concerned. I never really saw her growing up, so couldn't I just leave that jumbled mess tucked away somewhere and continue on with my life? But my mom, being the earthly angel that she is, encouraged me by saying, I know you may not understand this right now, but you will one day regret not facing her. Now that I am a mother myself, I also understand that she was too losing a daughter. With my mom by my side, I walked into Linda's hospital room. As soon as we walked in, her eyes opened and she reached for my hand. I walked to Linda's bedside and she said, I'm sorry. And just like that, I was filled with forgiveness and peace, washed over me. A lot of people say it doesn't happen like that. It did for me. I found forgiveness in my heart, and I was finally at peace. The jumbled mess of feelings that were tucked in the depths of my soul were instantly replaced by peace. Now I know that's only a peace that He can give. You see, I can look back on my childhood and my start into this life, and I can be sad and ashamed and even feel sorry for myself. Or I can seek out God's face. I can seek out His love, His compassion, His grace, His heart. More than just seeking His hands in my life, I can truly seek the face of God. In the book of Psalms, chapter 105, verse 4, the word commands us. I like to say commands us instead of tells us, because it commands us to seek the Lord in His strength, seek His face forevermore. So as hard as it may be to understand, I choose joy. I learned what joy was early on because He gave me joy in the human form, my mom. Without joy, what kind of influence would I be to my boys? If I didn't choose joy, it could ultimately steal the life right from me. I choose joy. I choose life. I choose Him every single day. I forgave my birth mother, Linda, for her choices. And because of forgiveness, I'm able to choose joy. I have never met my birth father. Sadly, the stories of him aren't good. He was a violent man and a heavy substance abuser as well. He never reached out to me, and I never felt the need to contact him. I think a lot of people would expect me to naturally want to know where I came from, and I may have pondered the thought, but I don't have that urge. And maybe it's because I was raised by such a remarkable woman. And also because I know I hit the Father jackpot with my Heavenly Father. I do have a memorable story to share with you about my birth father, and it's okay to laugh. I was always told that my birth dad's name was Kenny growing up. When I was in the second grade at Mount Warren Elementary School, a teacher called home to my mom and said, "We have a big problem. January is telling everyone in the halls and everyone in the classroom that her father is Kenny Rogers." It did. You know, it made sense to me. He was never around. He must be on tour, traveling, singing, and here's January in school. Even to this day, when I'm driving down the interstate and I see a billboard for Kenny, I always say, "Hey, Dad." I'm okay with that. I really am. And I think it just goes to show that at age 9, I was comfortable with who I was. October the 1st, 2005, surrounded by our family and friends, I married my best friend, Major Sean Fitzgerald. 2 months into our marriage, Sean deployed to Iraq for the first time. We were married in October, and he deployed in December. We spent our first wedding anniversary on opposite sides of the world. Sean returned home to Fort Hood, Texas, just a year later, and we finally were able to begin our lives together. 2 years later, April 11th, 2008, our twin sons, Gabriel and Owen, were born, arriving 9 weeks early. My goodness, those two were full of surprises. Considering we were only planning for one baby. God had other plans. The doctors used the term spontaneous twins to describe our pregnancy. They would spend 5 long weeks in the neonatal intensive care unit, growing a little stronger with each passing day. The boys were finally healthy enough to come home at just 5 weeks old. We would soon face another challenge. Sean had orders 2 weeks later for his second deployment to Iraq. Saying goodbye with 2 new babies was one of the most difficult things I had to face. Your faith really grows when you're tested. Thank God, Sean returned home just in time for the boys to show off their new skill, walking. I'm pretty sure that his homecoming went something like, "Hey, honey, welcome home. Get that baby. I'm getting this baby," because they were in separate directions. Hey, Mama. My current season of life is a difficult one, but rewarding at the same time. My mother's vascular dementia. Is continuing to progress. After many silent strokes, falls, ER visits, and physical therapy and doctor's appointments, my husband and I made the very challenging decision to move her into our home. Here we are, 4 years later, helping her battle this awful disease. We are also trying to live our best lives, raise amazing children, and also take brief moments of respite for ourselves. My mother is childlike in many ways. She is fully dependent on me for every single need. There are difficult days as her caregiver, days where I'm just so exhausted and I want to give up. However, with every "I love you" and "I don't know what I would do without you," I am reminded at how closely the Lord is walking with me on this path. She has invested so much into me and who I am. It is now my privilege and honor to love her through this challenging time. Dementia is truly the slow goodbye. My precious mother is currently under hospice care in our home. Every day is a gift and an opportunity to thank a woman who has been an outstanding example of a mother and the perfect definition of love. 1 John 3:18 tells us, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truths." This verse, I feel, is perfectly in line with my season as I serve my mother, because ultimately I am serving my Father. I will continue to serve my mother as long as the Lord asks me to, and to serve my family. I know that this is the Lord's will, and caregiving requires a true servant heart. Yes, I am thankful that my birth mother, Linda, chose life. I am sad for the siblings that never took a breath on this earth, but I know in my heart I will meet them again in heaven. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my testimony this morning. Choosing joy. I get it. It sounds easy, and sometimes we must talk ourselves into positivity, ultimately digging deep to find the true joy. Joy is a choice for you and for me. Joy isn't an achievement. It's a mindful decision. My joy is deeply rooted in my faith. Join me today and every day, and let's choose joy. In closing, I found a quote from Kenny Rogers, ironically, so I felt the need to want to share it with you. Joy seems to be a step beyond happiness. Happiness is sort of an atmosphere that you can live in. Sometimes, if you're lucky, Joy is a light that fills you with hope and faith and love. Thank you very much. Thank you.